Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land.
Hey. Uh, this video may get a little uncomfortable for some of you because we're talking about the TV show 13 Reasons Why. It's very famous on Netflix. Just putting this warning out here if you're uncomfortable with any subject matter that we talk about throughout this video, it is okay to leave and watch something else because there are difficult subject matters that they talk about that are real and need to be addressed, and they address it in the most extreme way possible. Just putting it out there. Subject matters. This is just some of them. Subject. Dad, go eat your hot dogs.
No, I'm gonna sit
Okay.
here. I'll
Okay.
be the kind. From my point of view here, guys, I have not really watched this. I know that his mom has sat down and watched it with him. Is one of the reasons why I was able to watch it. Because we often, like any good parents out there, we screen what our child watches first.
But I've also read the book 13 Reasons Why. The first season's based off of the book. And the book is actually more depressing than the show is because you can actually feel the emotions. But enough of the book. I'm getting on to the
And
TV show here.
I'll just kind of sit in here and maybe ask questions that you, the audience, might have about it
So
that are curious
here
because
here
I
here
haven't
are
watched it.
here are some of the questions that the here are some of the topics that the show handles, and it's okay to leave if you are uncomfortable with hearing about this stuff. It talks about teen suicide, substance abuse, sexual assault, and mental health struggles. So if you suffer for any of those, it's okay to not watch this. Also, if you're a victim of sexual assault, go report it to the police. All right.
Yeah, and also seek
We
help from a mental professional
yeah.
because that kind of thing will have a profound impact on you.
So, anyways, here is the first season. Here, I'm gonna briefly talk about the first season, and Dad will pop questions in here. First season of 13 Reasons Why starts out at the beginning with Hannah Baker basically sending out a tapes to the main character Clay Jensen, where he receives 7 cassette tapes that have 13 sides on it.
So let me pop in here for a minute. If it's cassette tapes, then it wasn't set in current year, was it?
It was actually set in the year that it was made in, 2017.
Well,
Twenty
because
seventeen, 2018.
I know cassette tapes can still be used, but it's not that often. Is the reason why I ask. That's pretty much a dying media.
Yeah, but anyways, enough of that. Basically, the reason. So then Clay listens to Hannah's first reason of the first side of the tape, which was Justin Foley. He is one of the characters that actually grows in the series, and I actually grow to like. Because at first I hate him, but then I grow to like him. There's only one character in the show that I really do hate, but I'll get to him later. Anyways, the first reason was Justin Foley basically was the first boy that Hannah ever kissed, yada yada yada. But then a rumor spreads because of a certain character that I'll talk about later, who sends a photo around the school and basically spreads a rumor about Hannah. First
Um,
reason why.
what's the rumor?
Basically that that she went down on Justin,
Ooh,
and that he also
that's crazy.
basically, yeah.
I'm a little uncomfortable already.
So yeah, I told you it would get uncomfortable. Uh, Second reason was she was a new girl when she first started in the show, and she also met another girl
Yeah,
named Jessica Davis.
yeah, it's always the new girl, huh, guys?
But the second reason is was Jessica Davis, but actually they flipped that from the book. But yeah, enough of the book. Second reason in the show is Jessica Davis, where basically she ends their friendship because of something that Alex started. Now that gets me to the third reason, Alex, who basically put Hannah as the best but they use a different word, in the sophomore class.
Yeah.
And that can kind of start taking a toll on a teenage girl's life, basically. Fourth reason, I do believe, is Tyler Down, which he basically is a peeping Tom. Yeah, that would creep me out. Yeah. Then the fifth reason is Courtney Crimson, who basically says that Hannah has a bunch of sex toys in her drawer. I told you that this show can get pretty extreme. I'm telling you.
What?
that's the fifth reason in the show.
Okay.
Sixth reason, we then get to a party scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me stop for a minute. First of all, if she did in fact have those things, why is it relevant to anybody else?
I don't know. It's a rumor, Dad. She doesn't actually have those.
Well, even if she did, why would that matter?
I don't know. Anyways, so sixth tape, I can't really remember that much. I can only remember the last few tapes of the show, which is a party that she goes to, and this night impacted her life forever. One, she breaks Clay's heart because she then starts thinking about all the stuff that's happened to her, and then basically tells Clay to get the heck out of there.
Let me just jump in for a moment and say that there are other films and stuff that deal with this difficult subject matter too. You can definitely find some of it relating to it. I'm not saying that you should seek it out, but as once again, if you're the victim of these kind of things, you do need to report it to the proper authorities.
And then she then witnesses a rape of Jessica Davis, but she never mentions it, but it's implied that, yeah, it's Jessica Davis. And it was also the most hated character on the show that I like to call everybody's favorite hated character on the show, Bryce Walker. Holy cow, I hate this guy. I hate him so much. And I don't know if it was wrong for me to be happy when they actually killed him off in season 3, but I hate him so much in this show.
So, okay, if it's based off of a book called 13 Reasons Why, is this like an interloping type of story arc where they kind of jump from event to event, or
basically what happens is in the book, the narrator of the book is Clay Jensen. It's told through his point of view, while you also have another point of view of Hannah, who he listens through the tapes. And so basically, he jumps from each side of the cassettes where she tells her stories through those cassettes.
Okay.
It's a very linear timeline there.
Well, the reason why I ask is because, a book is only so long, so they could only, if they had only done like a mini series of it, which for those guys who don't understand what a mini series is, it's just like a television or even these days a internet event that consists of 3 or 4, maybe 5 parts. Anyways, I'll let you continue talking.
All right, and so then she witnesses the rape of Jessica Davis, where then she blames Justin Foley for letting it happen because he could have stopped it, but he didn't. He basically just walked down the hall. Yeah. Starting to see why the show is just all over the place. Anyways.
Seems pretty controversial as well.
It is very controversial. In fact, the scene where Hannah commits suicide was actually edited out. It's actually very different from the show and the book. The book, she takes a handful of pills. In the show, she slits her wrist.
Another question. What rating does this show get?
A TVMA.
I figured as much.
Even though the book is not as extreme. But anyways, and then the 11th reason is Bryce Walker, and how he basically, no, he's the 12th. My mistake.
So
12th reason is Bryce Walker and how he basically raped Hannah.
Netflix. Let me butt in for a minute. So Netflix is basically over sensualizing the book.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Because in the book, in the show, they use a lot of curse words, but in the book, they rarely ever say F-bombs and stuff like that. Sure, there's mentions of a boy's lower parts in the book, but it never goes beyond that.
Okay.
Anyways, the 12th reason is Bryce Walker. The 11th reason, by the way, guys, was Sherry, who basically crashed into a stop sign, which then caused a car crash. Yeah. And then the 12th reason is Bryce Walker and how he raped Hannah and yada yada yada. Then she basically was then committed to offing herself. Then she tries to give it one last try. One last try. And this is where I'm like, this part is where I'm like, hold on a second, like what? So she gives life one last try, and she goes to her school counselor, Mr. Porter, who also happens to be the English teacher in the book. But she goes to her school counselor, Mr. Porter, in the show, and tries to get help, saying that she was sexually assaulted from a boy. And then Mr. Porter starts asking questions. He's like, who was this boy's name? And she's like, I don't know, even though she actually knows it was Bryce Walker. And he's like, well, we can't, all I can say is that we can bring this boy in and we can talk about this. And I'm like, dude, that's the worst thing you can say right now. And then he says even more worse things and says, well, I mean, he's going to be graduating in a few months, so you won't be able to see him, and all I have to say, Hannah, is to move on. It's like, bro, that is the worst thing you could say to a teenage girl who had just been raped. You can't move on from that kind of stuff.
Excuse making and victim shaming. Furthermore, let me butt in just one more time or another time here. If somebody doesn't listen to you when you've had a situation like that occur, keep talking and keep searching until you find somebody who will, because it's very important. And I know how it can be, or rather, I don't really know how it can be, but strictly from an outside perspective here, get help. Keep going until you find somebody who's going to listen to you.
You know, and throughout the show, it's always been that Clay Jensen was the one who was going to listen to Hannah, but she never actually reached out to him. And he's like, I could have helped you, and then it's like, Clay, you should have kept pressuring her. You know, that's another thing. You know, the main character, he has this hero complex throughout the show, but he's very, very flawed.
Yeah, I'll also say, while I haven't never seen this before, if you guys out there notice that there's something wrong with your friend and if something's not quite right, you know, a simple "Are you all right?" might be enough.
Yeah. So that brings us to season 2, where they're talking about the trials of Hannah Baker. It's the trial against the school. And then they call up.
So let me butt in with the question again. She sued the school?
Her parents did.
Okay.
For her suicide.
Okay.
Because at the end of the season, she slits her wrist, boom, she's dead. But in the book, she actually takes a handful of pills, so it's actually less graphic. Netflix, why? But in season 2, it's the trial. They're moving on with the trial. It takes place a few months after her suicide. And basically what happens then is that her parents call up witnesses and stuff, and they talk about how great Hannah was, and then they talk about some other stuff, and then the season ends on a very, very dark note. Actually, a student gets brutally sexually assaulted, basically by having a broomstick. I don't know how to say this without getting demonetized, but you get my
Don't.
drift.
Don't.
You get my drift. Dad.
The implication there, just alone, that it's an assault with a broomstick is probably enough.
And it's a male student.
And
so.
we're, this is a video that's kind of serious and touching upon a lot of subjects, but you don't
So
have to go
then-
into graphic detail.
So then, after that assault, he goes to the school with multiple guns, and basically he was going to shoot up the school. But then Clay Jensen intervenes and says, "You don't need to shoot up the school," and he doesn't. So then they hide all of his guns in the river, basically. Which then brings us to season 3, which is the season where Bryce Walker gets murdered. He gets killed. Which is the reason why he started all the stuff. And they try to make it more sympathetic that Bryce Walker was, like, trying to grow as a person. But it's like, have you not seen the stuff that he did in seasons 1 and 2? I mean, he legit raped, like, almost half of the girls at his school. Like, that's... Yeah.
But okay, let's dig a little deeper, because there's always that nature versus nurture argument, and where would Bryce have learned these behaviors and these patterns?
His grandfather.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna straight up say it. His grandfather. So then they basically get on with this whole long murder investigation, basically going after Clay Jensen, as he had the most likely reason to do that, because he says he gives a text to Bryce and says, "I'm going to effing kill you," and it's like, Clay, just be careful, buddy. All right. That can be very incriminating when they find out who, but it turns out it was actually Alex who killed him, basically pushed him off of a river, basically pushed him off of the bridge and into the river after he was beaten almost half to death. So yeah, season 4 then gets a little complicated, because they start diving into into Clay's mental decline.
Now, another question. In the book, is all this covered, or is this just stuff that Netflix is expanding upon?
Seasons 2, 3, and 4 are stuff that Netflix expanded on.
Okay.
Season 1 is the only thing that's based around the book.
Okay.
Seasons 2, 3, and 4 are
And
not.
is 13 Reasons Why the book based off of an actual incident, or is it complete fiction?
It's partially fiction, as there are some parts in the book that are based around the author's actual life, and then the parts where Hannah commits suicide, all that's fiction, but some of the locations and the events that he talks about are based around his actual life, like how in the book when Justin Foley and Zach slip and fall onto the lawn in front of the girls' house, that actually was something that him and his friend actually did. It's stuff like that. So in season 4, they start diving into Clay's mental health decline. And the season was all about him and his mental health struggles and the decline of his mental health, where he starts seeing the ghost of Monty and Bryce Walker, and then basically halfway through the season he has a mental breakdown, basically after the school does a lockdown drill that had actual gunfire that were blanks, and it's like, hold on a second. They're not supposed to allow to do that. Excuse me? That part made me mad, you know. And then the students get all riled up and stuff, and and then you know the show ends on kind of a sweet note in a way. Justin Foley gets killed. It gets killed off sadly because of AIDS. Because he did a lot of stuff when he was on the streets for the few months he was on the streets, basically. Because he did a lot of heroin and did a lot of stuff for money, basically. So then they graduate and then they go off to college, and that's how the show ends. So, again, the show dives down deeply into a lot of stuff that,
Big, dark, deep rabbit hole.
yeah. If you check out the show, you're basically diving down into a rabbit hole of just darkness. And they talk about the subjects they talk about in the most extreme way possible. So, I'm warning you about that. So, Dad, what do you think of the stuff that I described there?
I'm uncomfortable.
Is this the first time I've ever made you uncomfortable, Dad?
Yeah, I mean...
For the first time on Denny and Son, Dad's legit uncomfortable.
I've seen a lot of movies and a lot of stuff out there that's shocking and disturbing, but this definitely sounds horrible.
It is, you know, and it's like the reason why I watched the show in the first place was to see how a teenage girl's life can just get completely flipped upside down from just rumors and stuff, and how it could affect her. And that's the reason why I started watching the show, you know, just to see that. And then season 2 and
yeah,
stuff.
And unfortunately, it happens all too often.
Yeah, it happens way too often, you know, and people then, you know, the bullying from her, and you know, she gets cyberbullied and she gets bullied in real life and stuff, and then the rumors start happening, and that's what the author wanted to do within the original book, and Netflix did a pretty good adaptation of it, but then they just went off the rails in season 2. And went further off the rails in season 3, and way off the rails in season 4.
So, what's going to be your rating on this one?
I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. It's definitely a show that is controversial, definitely because of the topics that they discuss. But you know, like the writer of the show and creator of the show who made it actually dives down into dark, disturbing topics. So I wasn't at least a bit surprised. What about you, Dad? From the stuff that you've heard from me.
I'm probably not going to check it out because, you know, I do understand that there are incidents out there that does happen, and of course there are definitely movies and TV shows and, you know, stuff like that definitely covers it. It does seem like it's extreme.
It is extreme, very extreme.
But I guess that's really all the time we have for this one today. So once again out there, guys, and gals, too, if you've been the victim of an assault, make sure that you go to the proper authorities.
Yeah.
Make sure that you find somebody who's going to listen to you. If you're a teenager or a kid and this happens to you, tell your parents, tell a police officer, tell your guidance counselor, and you keep going until somebody listens.
You know, like, I'll say this for the show. You know, they say in the show there's an actual warning at the beginning of every season. It's like the show dives down into these topics, you know, and if you have mental health struggles, please see a professional and something like that. And if you even start thinking about suicide, just seek out to a friend or your guidance counselor or a trusted professional or your parents if you're a teenager, because I know that it's more often for teenagers to think about that kind of stuff than it is for most adults because of the stuff that we actually go through. You know, the social media and the social media where we can get cyberbullied, and the people around the world can see that cyberbullying happening to you, and then you realize you then go down into a dark and depressive state where you just can't come out of. And that's exactly what happened to Hannah Baker in the show, and it's something that happens all too often. So if you are that, please seek actual professional help.
And I'll step in and also say that if you are the person that sees said victim, and you see that something's wrong, you need to try to find a way to reach out to them, because it can be the difference between life and death. So we're going to say, once again, until next time, guys, peace and love from Denny and Son.